Good evening, everybody. Welcome to tonight's live. Today is Thursday, February the 4th, and it is 8 o'clock. And as many of you know, I just finished eating dinner, but I'm ready to go. It's feijoada, so I'm a happy man. So I'm going to go to tonight's live immediately. Whoops. Let's go to, let's see here. Começo. It's going to take me a couple of seconds. Whoops. Got one small detail, everybody. I need to go to share screen. And small detail, so you can see my PowerPoint. Alrighty, welcome. Just be another few seconds. I think we'll have one or two new people on board tonight. And if you're watching, I hope you enjoy this. Tonight's live, trying to keep this within 20 or 30 minutes. Hey, we have Felipe. He is one of our new watchers tonight. So welcome, Felipe. And let's see here. Let's make you famous here for just a second here. All right. Hey, there's Felipe, everybody. Now, Felipe, you're famous around the world. All righty. Let's get going. All right. We're ready to go. We're in share screen now. Take me a few seconds. And bear with me. Please be patient. Okay. What happened here? All righty. We're ready to go. And tonight, as you know, everybody, our veteranos, our veterans. I start with this slide here. Let's get started. As you know, this means vamos começar. Let's get started. All righty. And tonight's slide, let's go directly to the title slide, and it's called Abraham. There he is. What was he thinking? So everybody remembers Abraham. Well, should remember at least. But we'll take a look at a different perspective for Abraham. And last time, for review, we learned God called Abraham. Now, his name was Abram. So the Lord said to Abram, leave your country and your people. Now here you see leave, Deshar. Leave your father's family, Desha, and go to the country that I will show you. Which country was that? Well, we don't know. Did Abraham listen well? Did he listen well? So Abram left Haran, just like the Lord said. And there's just like. As you know, it's como, we looked at last week. Como o igual. In this case, como. So Abraham was not the first to be called. Now, called Shamar, as you know, can be ligar also by telephone. So he's called by God. And there were Adam and Noah before him. Now you know these names: Adam, Noah, and Tom. Now, did they listen well? Noah, yes, we know. Everybody knows about Noah. Adam, we're still not sure about. Now, there's an American expression that says the jury is still out, and that means we haven't reached a conclusion, or I haven't reached a conclusion, or that the experts haven't reached a conclusion or can't decide. So here, when the jury is still out, is we haven't reached a conclusion. Now, there's that word reach. That is alcanzar. We'll look at that in just a minute. So we haven't reached a conclusion yet. We don't have enough information. And as you know, enough is suficiente. So we need to know this word, enough. And there's reach. Usually it's alcanzar or atingir. So I can't reach the camera. So here is alcanzar. Or we can reach our goals. Atingir os objetivos. So reach is a important word for us in English. All right. Now, verse 4. So Abram left Haran, just like the Lord said, and Lot went with him. Now, Lot is somebody's name. I don't know what it is in Portuguese, probably Lot. I don't know. Abram was 75 years old. Abram is old. 75 when he left Haran. He took his wife Sarai. There's that word took, and here it's levar. He took his wife. In English, we can say he brought his wife. Ele trouxe his wife. And in Portuguese, it doesn't make sense. He took his wife or he brought his wife. Sarai. His nephew Lot, remember nephew we learned last week is sobrino, all the slaves and all the other things he had gotten in Haran. Now in American English, it's gotten. In English, it's get, got. American English, get, got, gotten. And some Americans even use get, got. So sorry to confuse you. So then he and his group moved to the land of Canaan. So this we'll see later. So here is what we know so far. And there's that word so again. As you know, so can be então, tão, tanto, assim, sim, and I'm missing a few. So here, so far is até agora. So far, here's what we know so far. Abraham is old, or Abram. His name changes later, but we'll take a look at that. And so is his wife. And here, so is também. So is his wife, Sarai. So they're both old. And Canaan is in the land of Israel. And Abram, or Abraham, probably had thousands of people with him. We didn't look at this last week. But he will see later, maybe, in another class, that Abram was not alone. He had many people with him. So he probably had thousands with him, going with him. So it's not a small group. Then in verse 10, during this time, there was not enough food in the land. There's that word enough again. So suficiente. During this time, there was not enough food in the land. So, então, Abram went down to Egypt to live. So here's down to Egypt. Down can be descer, or I don't know what it would be on a map. So you start in the north, Bahia, and you go down, and you end up in Rio de Janeiro or São Paulo. So Abram went down to Egypt. In this case, it's on the map. Down can be to the south, as I mentioned, or it can be altitudinally. Good luck with that one. It is the same word in Portuguese. Altitudinamente. So altitudinally. Practice that at home, please. We don't have enough time. It will take a long time to say this, altitudinally. But does this sound familiar? Now in English, does it sound familiar? Do you remember this? I remember hearing this. Does it sound familiar? Abraham's grandson Jacob sent his kids to do the same thing. And someday we'll look at that, not anytime soon. But all right, verse 11, and Joseph, by the way, that was left in Egypt. All right, verse 11. Just before they arrived in Egypt, Abram told Sarai, "Look, I know that you are a very beautiful woman." Now, a very beautiful woman, she's probably 75 years old. But let's look at a few things here first. First, I just wanted to know. People ask me, just is confusing. I just wanted to know. Here, just is só. Eu queria saber. I just wanted to know. And here, just after the game, is logo depois. It can be just after, and above it says just before they arrived. So here it's logo antes they arrived. Eles chegaram in Egypt. So just after the game, for example, logo depois do jogo, and I sing just like Roberto Carlos. Eu canto igual como Roberto Carlos. Of course, many of you know this is Roberto Carlos, the football player. And I play football just like Roberto Carlos, the singer, with just one leg. All right. I just ate dinner. I said this at the beginning. I just ate dinner. And this is acabei. Eu acabei de jantar. Oh, I just ate dinner. So, logo antes, mas instante antes, I just ate dinner. So I just ate feijoada. And I came to do the live. All right. So just can be confusing. Anyhow, now what was Abraham thinking? You remember this question, this past tense. What is Abraham thinking? What was Abraham? She was old, like Abram or Abraham. Como, you know this, like como. She was old. But the Hebrew, in Hebrew, the Hebrew can mean she was a beautiful woman, or it can also mean pleasant to look at. Now, pleasant usually is agradável, almost always. It can also mean pleasant to look at. So it can be beautiful, and she could have looked just very different from the Egyptians. And everybody does the same thing. She could have looked very different from the Egyptians, exotic, just different from the rest of the world around them. So remember, this is 4,000 years ago. Now let's look at that map again. Now, you see in the bottom right, just below Sumer. So it's a few kilometers away from Babylon. And this day, really, it's a lot of kilometers from Babylon because it's not easy to travel. Babylon is the center of culture in this area. So he went up from he passed Babylon on the way to Haran. Now, Haran is not a busy area, but much of the trade and commerce is going through this area, Haran. So there is a lot of money in this area. And then when God calls Abram at age 75 years old, he wants him to go to Canaan. And so he goes down to the south, you see in the purple. Anyhow, so let's look at that map again. Now, in the middle between I know you probably call it Ur. In English, we say there's a big desert. You see the desert between and Israel. So instead of you know this, instead of going from to Hebron, they followed the route. Well, first he went up to Haran. It's not easy to go from to Israel. Not easy at all. But remember, this is 4,000 years ago. And it took a long time to go from Babylon to Egypt. All right. And the different races hadn't mixed yet. Ainda. Entirely. You know this word entirely? Inteiramente. And some people think the Hittites, they will look at this empire later, much later, started close to Babylon. They moved to what is Turkey. Now, you know, Turkey is Turkia. So they moved to Turkey, and then they ended up in Germany. So everybody has an idea what people look like in Iraq, Saudi Arabia, dark hair, dark skin, big nose. And Germany is predominantly white. There's another word that's hard in Portuguese and for you in English. Predominantly. So practice that at home also. Predominantly white. All right. Now here's a picture of Syrian children today. Here we are. And you can see they have some Arab features, but these are light skin, light hair. And this is, I don't want to say it's typical, but it's common, extremely common in the area. So it's not like the Arab features that we see in the Iraqis and Saudi Arabia. All right, now in verse 12, Abraham has a plan. He has a plan. When the Egyptian men see you, they will say, the woman is his wife. Then they will kill me and keep you alive because they want you. So the keep you here is keep, is manter, keep you alive, vivo, because they want you. Now, was Abram a threat to Pharaoh? Now here, ameaça. Now the verb we have is threaten, con IN no final. So threaten is ameaçar. Threat, ameaça. Well, he probably had thousands of people with him, and many sheep and cattle. Now, cattle is gado. So he had many sheep and cattle, and this was like a little traveling kingdom. You have to remember, 10,000 people, for example, is a big number. This is a moving city. Cidade móvel, maybe, in Portuguese. So he had a traveling kingdom with him. So yes, he was a threat, maybe. Now, what was wrong with Abraham? What was wrong? Era errado con Abraham. How can Abraham be the father of many nations if he is dead? God promised. Deus prometeu. Now, dead is morto. And this is confusing for me because I think dead as morrido, and you probably do the same thing. So the verb is die, died. But the condition is dead. So, and again, it's confusing. Dead Sea, Mar Morta, I believe. A Mar Morta, the Dead Sea close to Israel, or in Israel. All right. Now, Abraham believed God. Now, these are important verbs here. Abraham believed God, but he didn't trust him. He didn't trust God. So here's the difference between believe and trust. Believe, acreditar, crer, also, but he didn't trust God. All right. Here's Abraham's plan. He had a plan. So, então, tell them that you are my sister. Now, remember, I tried to say the difference between tell and say. And here's tell. And here, the direction of tell them. There's always an object you're telling, or a subject, or another person or people. Tell them that you are my sister. Then they will be good to me because of you. They will be good to me because of you. Então, in this way, you will save my life. Então, again, what was he thinking? Maybe, talvez, you'll save my life if they are generous. Então, now this, I mentioned this a couple of weeks ago, it's called rationalizing. Here's our gerund for today. Remember, gerunds are not verbs. You would think of this as racionalizando, but this is an object. Here it is an object. Gerunds in English, remember, are not verbs. They are things or adjectives. Here's is a thing. This is called rationalizing. And this is when we convince ourselves or we tell ourselves something is true and it is not. So, what happened next? The king found out Sarah, Sarai, was Abram's wife. So we'll look at a couple of phrasal verbs here. One of them is found out. I try to look at this or mention this all the time. Found out is descobriu. Ele descobriu. O rei descobriu. Sarai was Abram's wife. And he kicked out Abram and his wife and all the people with them. He kicked them out. Kick out. Now, kick is literally is chutar. So kick out. There's the idea. Kick out, expulsar. Então, later on. All right, now we're going to jump a little bit. Chapter 15. This is later on. Later. Not just later, but later on. Same thing. Mais tarde na frente. Here, later on. Abram complained. Most of you should know this word, complain, reclamou. He complained. But Abram said, now here there's no person, just Abram said. This is the verb. Lord God, there is nothing you can give me. There is nothing you can give me that will make me happy. because I have no son. Now, these red letters, for anybody new, are words with no, any, some, and every. These are all important words that we need to understand in order to be intermediarios. So if you're a beginner intermediario, we need to have a good understanding of these words. Anyhow, my slave Eliezer from Damascus will get everything I own after I die. So here's everything, nothing, everything I own, eu possuir, after I die. Now remember, slavery is not the slavery then, então, is not the same as slavery today. We think today. It's not the same thing. You cannot compare the two. Now, what was Eliezer thinking? If I were Eliezer, I'm going to be rich. Yes, I want to be Eliezer. Eliezer. He's hoping Abraham dies without a son. All right. So verse 3 in chapter 15, Abram said, "You have given me no son." So here's nenhum filho. So, então, a slave born in my house will get everything I have. So this is a second time, because remember in verse 2 he said, Abram said, and then here's another event. So there is a time between verse 2 and verse 3. So he repeated himself, but you have an idea. Abram is still very, very upset, chateado, atropiado, lamentando, I don't know. So he wants a son. And this is common in the culture. It still is today. Então, so he repeated himself at a later time. Later on. Então, so Abram is still complaining. Now here's ainda. He is still complaining. Remember, still is not changed. He complained in the past, and he is still complaining now. So still means not changed. Yet means not happen. Ainda não aconteceu. Or foi completado. Remember, completado is Portuguese, and English is perfect. That's why we say perfect tense. Então, verse 4. Then God led, there it is again, Abram outside and said, look at the sky. We looked at these, look at and see. Remember, look at, olhar para, uma olhada. So see is ver, with the nossa visão. So it means to fix our vision, fix our visão. Look at means to take one look, uma olhada. A little different, look at and see. There are so many, here's tanto, that you cannot count them. Remember when we used so as a tão or tanto, we need to have that explicaçãozinha. It's a little explanation. There are so many that you cannot count them. We will review this again and again. Your family will be like that. Oh, nossa. Então, verse 6. Abram believed the Lord again. And because of this faith, the Lord accepted him as righteous. Now, in English, it says credited to him as righteous. And I think in Portuguese, it also says credited. Abram complained, probably for years about this. And he was blessed. Remember, blessed, abençoado. Blessed, abençoar. So he was blessed. And he complained. Remember, this was Paul's favorite verse from the Old Testament. I should say from the Old Testament. He said this many times. And because of this faith, the Lord credited him as righteous. No way, Pedro. No way. No way. Now you know that way is jeito. And no way is de jeito nenhum. No way, Pedro. Impossible. You are wrong, Pedro. It can't be. Abraham can't do that. He can't complain and get blessed. Now here, remember, get, ficar. Get can be many things. He can't complain and get blessed. How can he do that? Really? Now there's realmente. That's a confusing word actually in English. Confusing, confuso. Really, there are many applications for really. Então, now Abraham isn't the only one. Here, only is único ou só. He isn't the only one. Now here's único. He isn't única pessoa. The list of complainers. Now remember, complainers complain. The verb is complain, complainer, play, player, act, actor. So ER or OR at the end. The list of complainers includes. Now this is singular. Remember, this is the list. The list includes. So many people see complainers. Oh, Pedro, this complainers. It should be the list of complainers include. Remember, the object here is one list. So list of complainers includes. All righty. Jacob. Remember Jacob in the Bible? Moses. Oh, Moses complains. Yes, he did. Did Isaiah? Yes, Isaiah complained. I'm a man of unclean lips. Jeremiah. I'm too young. Don't take me. Look for somebody else. And then there's Gideon in the book of Judges. These are all famous people. Everybody remembers a Bibi de Gideon, I believe, you find in the hotels. So the list is long, and that list also includes you and me. So, because sometimes we complain. Why don't I get that? And we stop complaining at maturity. We've always looked at maturidade. Maturidade, I believe, in Portuguese. Now, God loves a cheerful giver. Now, in Portuguese, this is Deus ama quem dá com alegria. Everybody knows this verse. God loves a cheerful giver. Cheerful is a word we haven't used in English. I have never heard this. Cheerful out of away from this verse. But now remember that cheerful is hilarious. It's not cheerful con alegria. Alegria is for us. Alegria, joy, is for us. Hilarious is for other people. So we are to be hilarious for other people, but save the complaining for God. The complaining for God. Yes, absolutely. Save the complaining for God. It's okay, everybody. It is okay. It's okay to doubt. It happens. To doubt. Oh, man, did I miss something here? It's okay not to believe some things. Algumas coisas. At first. Now, at first, no início. Então, it's okay. It happens. Oh, that's very strange. I can't believe these things happen. And it's okay to think God isn't listening at times. We all go through bad times. Some people worse than others. Oof. And sometimes we think God isn't there. God isn't listening. It's okay. It happens, everybody. And it's okay to complain. So, but not to me, okay? If it doesn't make sense to complain. It's somebody once said, if you complain to other people, 80% don't care, and 20% are happy that you are suffering. So it doesn't help to complain to other people. All right. But you will find out, there's that word descobrir. You will find out with time that it's all true. It is all true. And God has always been there. But we have to remember one thing. Nos debemos. We must remember one thing. Be still, from the Proverbs, and know that I am God. Be still. Fica calma, relax, chill out, whatever. Be still and reflect. Refletir that I am God. Know that I'm God. Now, you probably won't get the answers today. Respostas. Não vai receber respostas hoje. At least for some of the bigger questions. There's that word at least, pelo menos, for the bigger questions. But if you look to God for the answers, you will find them, I guarantee. You will find them. God will provide. There's a word provide, fornecer ou providenciar. Fornecer ou providenciar. And remember, he sometimes, às vezes, I forgot to highlight this in red. He sometimes seems slow to us. Now, remember, parecer, in this case, seem is a conception. It is not something that we see. It's not visual. It's something that is a perception, perceive, or something we understand. It's not something that's visual. So he sometimes seems slow to us. Parece devagar, lento to us. But he is never late. Never late. Então, what is the moral of the story, everybody? What is the moral? You have this question in Portuguese. What is the moral of the story? Do not rationalize, everybody. Do not rationalize. Do not convince yourself some things are true. And definitely do not compromise. Comprometer. Now, comprometer, I believe, has two meanings in Portuguese. If you have a meeting, that's a compromiso. Eu comprometi. So do not compromise. And this means to devalorizar sua fé. Do not compromise with the world. If we don't get the answers today, so from Proverbs, everybody, trust in the Lord with all your heart. Don't rationalize. Don't compromise with the world. Well, these people are okay. These are nice people. Then it must be okay to be like them. So that's how our doctrine has suffered in the last century. We look at what's on television and we think everything, that's the way the world is or should be, and it is not. Trust in the Lord with all your heart. Do not depend on your own understanding. There's that word own, proprio. Own, possuir, ou proprio. Entendimento, understanding. So there's another gerund in English. It is not a verb. Here it is a thing. Entendimento. Do not depend. Trust in the Lord with all your heart. Trust. Confiar. Confie in the Lord with all your heart, and do not depend on your own understanding. In all your ways. So ways, jeitos, maneiras. Remember, can be many of these words. Jeitos, maneiras, modos. It's a popular word. In English, we just have the one. Can be many in Portuguese. In all your ways, obey him. Then he will make your paths straight. And in Portuguese, your path straight is the opposite. Endireitará as suas veredas. And they turn that around in the Portuguese because the word doesn't exist. It exists, but it doesn't sound good. So he will straighten your paths. There's that verb with the en. Remember, we looked at threaten and now straighten. So, and here's the big part. If you let him. Don't look to the world for these answers. You just have to let God work in your life. So this is the big if. If you let him. Então, remember, is deixar, the other deixar. I tried to include let deixar and leave deixar. So here's permission if you let him. All right, everybody. We'll stop here. Thank you for joining us tonight, and have a good night, everybody. So see you in class or next Thursday at 8 o'clock. Good night, everybody.